Beloved soul, there are no accidents here, and your presence with this message at this exact moment is not random. Something has already been set in motion around you, quietly, deliberately, without your permission, but never without divine awareness. And the fact that you are still listening tells me something inside you already knows this message is not light. It will come without sound, without ceremony, yet it will carry a weight far greater than its appearance suggests. What is approaching is not ordinary. It is a message wrapped in secrecy, a truth concealed for a long time, now unable to remain hidden. You have sensed this presence before, felt the tension without understanding its source, known in your spirit that something was unfolding behind your back, even when you had no proof to name it. This is not fear speaking. This is recognition. Archangel Michael whispers a warning meant only for those who are ready to hear it. In the near moments ahead, something unexpected will arrive at the threshold of your life, not announced, not explained, but waiting to be noticed. Someone close to you by title or history, but distant in intention, has been watching quietly, presenting warmth while nurturing something darker beneath the surface. Their smiles have masked strategy, their words have bent reality, and their discomfort with your growth has shaped actions you were never meant to see until now. Yet heaven does not allow deception to reign forever. Another soul, moved by conscience and unable to stay silent, has stepped into alignment with truth. What they have seen has reached a tipping point, and the truth they carry is being redirected toward you. This moment exists to confirm what you felt but doubted, to steady your heart before clarity arrives. Stay with this message, because what is about to be revealed is not meant to harm you, but to free you. And your spirit already knows it is time. They moved with absolute certainty, convinced their steps would never echo back to them, relying on your trust, your quiet nature, your habit of seeing the good even when it cost you. And that confidence is exactly what allowed the truth to grow unchecked for so long. But what is contained within that bag is about to rupture the illusion they built so carefully. Every glance they held a second too long, every conversation that felt slightly off but was brushed aside, every moment you questioned yourself instead of them will rise at once, because what has been gathered there was never meant to stay hidden. Images, recordings, altered messages, documents taken without consent, fragments of a story pieced together in darkness, all of it now standing together in undeniable form. And once you see it, the world you thought you understood will tilt just enough that you can never return to the same innocence again. Pause here and let this settle, because the heaviness you feel is not fear but recognition, the weight of truth finally meeting a heart that has carried too much alone. If part of you wants to stop listening right now, it's not discomfort, it's recognition. This betrayal does not come from a stranger, but from someone close enough to know your rhythms, your vulnerabilities, your patterns of mercy. Someone who wore a familiar name and believed that love would keep you from ever looking too closely. Yet love is not blindness, and gentleness is not weakness, and what is happening now is not punishment but protection taking a new form, one that speaks clearly instead of whispering. The one who ensured this truth reached you did not act from impulse. They were stirred from within, compelled to move quietly, leaving no explanation behind, because the evidence itself would speak louder than any confession. And now, As the moment approaches where this arrives fully into your awareness, understand that you will sense it before you touch it. A tightening in your chest, a stillness in the air, a knowing that asks you to steady yourself before opening what cannot be closed again. As you take it in, names will surface that you recognize too well, signatures that match hands you trusted, words written as if they came from you but never did. And the shock will not come from surprise alone, but from grief, from realizing how long this was unfolding while you were choosing peace. What was planned against you reaches deeper than emotion, touching things you helped build, stability you assumed was shared, futures discussed in rooms you were never invited into. And yet this exposure arrives not a moment too early or too late, but precisely when you are strong enough to hold it without breaking. In the days that follow, memories will rearrange themselves, conversations replaying with new clarity, evasions suddenly making sense, silences revealing intention, and the confusion that once clouded your intuition will dissolve, not because the truth is gentle, but because it is complete. Family was meant to be safe, and that wound cuts deeply when it is not. But this is not the end of belonging. It is the end of distortion. Some are bound to you by blood, yet guided by something else entirely. And this revelation is not meant to harden your heart, but to free it from questioning itself. What you are receiving is confirmation, a doorway out of doubt, and the beginning of a life where your clarity no longer has to fight to be believed. Archangel Michael reveals that exposure is not punishment. It is mercy unfolding at the exact moment it must, because without this unveiling, you would have continued forward unaware, stepping toward consequences that were never meant to claim you. And now you move differently, not hardened, but empowered by sight. This is larger than betrayal alone. It is correction, a divine rerouting that interrupts a path quietly being set against you, bringing into the open the person you defended and the distortion you sensed but tried to dismiss for the sake of peace. You will encounter proof that alters your breath, an image of yourself captured without your knowing, your name spoken in conversations where your presence was deliberately excluded, plans discussed as if your life were a piece to be moved without consent. And in that moment it will become unmistakably clear that while others plotted your weakening, heaven was already arranging your protection. Pause here, because the ache rising in your chest is not shock alone, but the grief of realizing how long you carried loyalty where it was never returned. Among what is revealed, you will recognize handwriting too familiar to ignore, words never intended to reach your eyes, agreements forged in your silence, judgments spoken about your strength as if it were absence, labels placed on you they would never dare accept for themselves. And now those same words stand as witnesses against them, turning their own strategy into the fire that consumes it. They believed secrecy would mute the truth, but truth does not need volume, it only needs timing, and this moment has arrived. The one who ensured this reached you may never step into the light, yet their obedience has preserved your name and interrupted harm that would have echoed far beyond this season. Do not answer this revelation with fury, because clarity carries a quieter authority. Take it in fully, understand it completely, and then allow stillness to do what reaction never could. And now pay close attention, because this is where the shift becomes irreversible. They will continue to behave as though nothing has changed, offering warmth, laughter, small talk, yet beneath every gesture will live unease, because they know the truth has moved from shadow into your hands. That tension you feel around them is not imagination. It is the tremor of a structure realizing it has been seen. Truth does not rush. It does not threaten. It waits. And their fear will grow not because you speak, but because you do not. What they initiated can no longer be contained. What they constructed on distortion is already fracturing, and what they feared most was never your anger but your awareness. Their greatest dread is not that you know, but that the truth may travel further than they can control, because silence once shielded them, but now silence is alignment, a pause before justice completes its work. They do not know when you will move, who else may already be informed, or how much has been understood, and that uncertainty is the consequence they must sit with. You, however, stand steady, holding more than documents or recordings, holding discernment sharpened by experience and guarded by divine insight, and that is what renders you immovable in this hour. They are scrambling now, trying to outrun what has already caught them, quietly changing access codes, erasing threads, making hushed calls in corners they think are still safe. But the moment has passed because the trap they set has already turned inside out. What they intended to conceal has become your shield. What they shaped in darkness is now scorching under open light. Someone who once chose silence is feeling the pressure build because they were involved, yes, but fear of being dragged down with the truth has begun to outweigh allegiance to the one who orchestrated it. And once a single voice breaks rank, the rest will follow with a speed that cannot be stopped. Pause here and breathe, because the stillness you are being asked to hold is not weakness but command, the kind that watches structures fall without lifting a hand. You will soon hear whispers moving through spaces you are not in, stories bending, details being adjusted as people attempt to soften their roles. But you will not need to defend yourself or correct anyone, because what exists now does not rely on memory or opinion. What exists now no longer depends on explanation. They underestimated how deeply you sensed what was wrong, and they never imagined that intuition would one day be matched by proof solid enough to stand on its own. You were never meant to discover this, yet it reached you anyway, because timing is not ruled by intention but by necessity, and heaven intervenes when delay would cause harm. Archangel Michael speaks of this as sacred justice, not the kind that seeks revenge, but the kind that restores order, because you did not seek conflict, yet you are fully prepared to walk through it without losing yourself. You do not need to raise your voice. The movement of your life forward will carry more authority than any argument ever could. People who once accepted the wrong version of events will begin to notice the truth, not through confrontation, but through the steadiness in your presence, the clarity in your choices, the peace that no longer wavers. And those who helped hide what was done will feel exposed simply by standing near that calm. Now, listen closely, because this is where the momentum shifts from tension to release. They are already feeling the consequences internally, waking with unease, checking devices compulsively, watching your movements from a distance, not because they fear what you will say, but because they are haunted by what they did. Sleep leaves them. Influence slips through their fingers. The persona they relied on begins to crack. Meanwhile, your way forward is widening, not only as an exit from what hurt you, but as an ascent beyond what they ever imagined you could reach. The obstruction they tried to build only accelerated what was already meant to unfold. They struck a match, hoping to burn you, and instead revealed what cannot be destroyed. People around you are starting to sense the difference. A grounded brightness, a strength that does not announce itself, the unmistakable presence that comes when deception loosens its grip. This was never a curse arriving at your door. It was clarity arriving in a form you could no longer ignore. You are no longer trapped in guessing or doubting your own perception. You are standing with confirmation, and that changes everything. They attempted to author an ending without your consent, but the closing pages belong to you, and what unfolds from here carries restoration, truth, and elevation. They may soften now, cry, explain, redirect blame, but tenderness does not erase intent, and confusion does not undo planning. What was done has been seen, what you endured has been noted, and justice is not waiting somewhere in the distance. It is already moving, quietly and decisively, through every layer of what comes next. Archangel Michael speaks with clarity and steadiness now, saying you were never unaware, only sheltered. And that shelter is lifting not to wound you but to release you into truth, because awakening always begins the moment vision returns. What arrived was never meant to frighten you, it was meant to open you, and from this point forward the world around you will not appear the same, which is not a loss but a mercy, because sight is a form of freedom. You may notice the shift in them almost immediately, the avoidance that arrives too late, the hesitation beneath sudden warmth, kindness that feels rehearsed rather than sincere. And understand, this is not remorse, healing the past, but fear, trying to survive exposure. They will attempt to soften history, to reposition themselves in your story, hoping familiarity will blur what has already been seen. Yet your spirit has not forgotten, and your soul has quietly closed a door that will not reopen. Pause here and let the weight of this settle fully into your body, because the stillness rising in you is the sound of detachment completing its work. What was revealed did more than uncover a scheme. It clarified who cannot walk with you into what comes next. And then there will be a moment, subtle but unmistakable, when you enter a space and conversation dissolves into silence, a hush that carries more information than words ever could, and you will know without being told that they have seen it, heard it, understood it. That awareness will meet you in their eyes, not with accusation, but with a startled respect, because the balance has shifted and you are no longer the one being assessed. You are the one holding clarity. They misjudged how you would respond when truth arrived, expecting collapse or pleading, never imagining that you would remain rooted while the storm exhausted itself around you. You did not chase justice or demand recognition. You simply stood in alignment, and that composure unsettled them more deeply than any retaliation could have. Now they move in quiet desperation, trying to reverse what cannot be undone, because once betrayal is exposed, it cannot be folded back into secrecy. And here is where the movement becomes irreversible. The way ahead has been cleared, residue washed away, leaving only what is real, unfiltered, and undeniably yours. Let those who doubted you sit with the emptiness their silence created. Let those who betrayed you carry the weight of their own actions, because you have already crossed beyond the need to prove anything. This was never about winning through force, but about revelation making space for the next season to breathe. Your hands are being freed from what never belonged to you, your living space guarded from energies that drained rather than nourished, and your future adjusted by a guidance that does not negotiate with deception. There will be no return to confusion, no more entertaining false loyalty simply because it wore a familiar name. Because the circle forming around you now is built on truth that can endure fire, not convenience that dissolves under pressure. What came to you did not fracture your peace. It restored it, and one day you will speak of this not with anger but with grounded strength, not as a wound but as evidence, saying simply that what was hidden could not remain so, and that grace carried you through without hardening your heart. Let them whisper if they must. Let them wonder how you remained steady, because you have moved beyond comparison, stepped out of their reach, and risen into a clarity that no longer requires explanation. From this moment on, you will start to witness replacements that feel deliberate, almost surgical, as if something unseen is restoring balance piece by piece. Because where deception once sat comfortably, truth is stepping in without apology, and where loyalty was missing, it is arriving quietly but firmly. The one who delivered what opened your eyes may never step forward or claim credit, yet they were positioned by heaven as the bridge between what you sensed and what you needed confirmed. And honoring that act does not require words, only a silent gratitude for the protection that spared you from a far deeper snare. Pause with this for a breath longer than feels comfortable, because the relief washing through you is not random. It is the nervous system realizing danger has passed and clarity has taken its place. Archangel Michael reveals that the light surrounding you now is uncommon, the kind that forms around someone who endured a spiritual attack meant to erase them and still emerged intact, still standing, still capable of joy. And you are no longer the same person who lived before that truth arrived. Because you have seen beyond illusion, matured faster than expected, and stepped forward with a courage that does not ask permission. Let those who doubted you observe your ascent without commentary, because this rise carries no secrecy, no shame, and no need for validation. And now, as the energy settles into a new pattern, there will be an evening that feels ordinary until your phone illuminates with a name you recognize too well, the one tied to the center of it all, reaching out not from accountability but from discomfort, crafting words meant to soften exposure rather than face it. Their message will sound gentle, layered with explanations and partial remorse, but beneath it you will feel the same resistance to full truth, the same impulse to dilute responsibility, and you will recognize that immediately, because the clarity you hold cannot be undone. You will not respond with fury or plead for closure, because you no longer need either, and you will understand with calm certainty that they were never meant to stay beyond this point, only to test whether you would choose yourself when the truth arrived. Archangel Michael cautions you not to return to what you were just freed from, reminding you that the exposure itself was an act of protection, the evidence was mercy, and your restraint carried more authority than confrontation ever could. They will begin to feel your absence now, not because love suddenly awakened, but because control dissolved, and the structure they relied on is collapsing under its own weight. Their apologies may try to plant doubt, phrased carefully to sound reasonable, but you will not second-guess what you felt or what you saw, because understanding has already settled in your body. You owe no one access to the peace that followed your awakening, only a commitment to protect it. From a distance, they will watch your life brighten. Hear your name spoken with respect in places they cannot enter. Sense opportunities opening that exclude them entirely, and that emptiness will be the echo of their own decisions, not your doing. The one who ensured the truth reached you still remains unseen, content without recognition, having acted from courage when others stayed quiet, and though you may never know their face, their choice altered the course of your life. Archangel Michael affirms that what was intended to ensnare you will now mirror back into the lives of those who planned it, not because you wished harm, but because truth naturally redirects consequence. As this settles, you will feel lighter, not because the past vanished, but because the weight of not knowing has been lifted, leaving you clear rather than angry, aligned rather than lost, strengthened rather than broken, with truth no longer hiding, but standing beside you in full light, unmistakable and free. As this message settles into you, let it move gently from hearing into living, because what has already been set in motion does not require effort so much as consent. The invitation here is not to do more, prove more, or rush ahead, but to quietly align your everyday life with the truth that has begun to surface. You may notice a natural pull to release a thought you've carried for years, a belief that once kept you safe but now feels heavy, or a fear that no longer deserves the authority it once held. And letting it go does not have to be dramatic. It can be as simple as choosing not to rehearse it again today. You might feel drawn to create a bit of order around you, not as a ritual or task, but as a way of signaling to yourself that you are open, that there is room now for something new to arrive without having to fight for space. Even the smallest act of clearing, a drawer, a surface, a corner of your day, can mirror the internal shift already happening beneath the surface. There may be moments when you feel compelled to write something down, not to demand an outcome or control the future, but to clarify what you are available for now, to give shape to a readiness that has been forming quietly inside you. Pay attention to what repeats gently in your life, words that surface more than once, themes that return, subtle opportunities that arrive without force, because alignment often speaks softly and waits to be noticed. When the time comes to respond, it may not feel bold or dramatic. It may feel calm, grounded, like saying yes without overthinking, or choosing not to say yes at all, and both can be acts of trust. You are not being asked to be perfect, healed, or fearless, only to be present, attentive, and slightly more open than you were yesterday. If parts of you still feel tired or cautious, let them be. They are not barriers, they are evidence of how much you have already carried. This preparation is not about earning anything or proving faith. It is about making room, internally and externally, for what is already moving toward you. Let your days remain ordinary. Let your pace stay gentle. Let your choices be honest rather than impressive, because readiness grows through steadiness, not pressure. By simply allowing your life to soften into this moment, by honoring what is ending and not rushing what is forming, you are already cooperating with the unseen work unfolding around you, allowing the spiritual to meet you where you are, in ways that feel real, grounded, and sustainable. What you have felt while listening is real, and it carries weight, even if it stirred emotions you could not immediately name. Nothing that reached you here was accidental or imagined. It has been seen, acknowledged, and set in motion beyond what the mind can grasp, unfolding steadily without your need to force, chase, or control it. If you are still here at this moment, it is because something within you recognized that these words were not passing through your life at random, but touching a place already awake and listening. What has been spoken is not hanging in the air. It has been sealed, ordered, and is now working quietly in the unseen, aligning circumstances and hearts in ways that do not require your vigilance to succeed. This is not a conclusion, but a threshold, the soft crossing between what has been and what is beginning to reveal itself, layer by layer, in its own time. As Scripture reminds us, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion," and that work is not rushed, nor is it fragile. Let this moment release you forward rather than close you in, knowing that clarity will continue to unfold as you walk, not before. Carry a gentle trust with you now, and allow the space you step into next to meet you where you are, as you leave this moment quietly, awake, and open to what is already on its way. If your heart feels full, tender, or quietly stirred after this message, you are gently welcome to let it speak. In the comments, you may share whatever is resting within you right now, a hope you've been holding, a pain you've carried in silence, a fear you haven't found words for, or a prayer that feels unfinished. There is no pressure to explain it perfectly. God sees every word offered in sincerity, and no prayer is ever overlooked or lost. Nothing about your staying until this moment was accidental, and the fact that you are still here, breathing calmly, tells me the truth did not come to destroy you. It came because you were finally strong enough to receive it. As you write, remember that you are not alone in this moment. You are being held, guided, and met with compassion and saving love exactly where you are.